I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
For 2 decades, Marvel Comics characters were dispersed across Hollywood studios like Infinity Stones. No individual studio held the rights to enough superheroes to warrant even thinking about a cinematic universe. But in the year 2000, 20th Century Fox would make the first true superhero team movie with Bryan Singer's X-Men. Starring big names like Halle Berry and Patrick Stewart, X-Men launched the then little-known Hugh Jackman to stardom, and realizing the beloved character of Wolverine as only he could. Jackman became the first and only X-Men character to get a standalone film until Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool in 2016. X-Men Origins Wolverine hit theaters in 2009 and quickly became maligned as one of the worst comic book movies of all time. I'm here to tell you that not only is this movie excellent, but without it, we would never have gotten the 2 brilliant sequels or Ryan Reynolds' blockbuster spin-offs. I'm Alex Mady, and welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone who dislikes Hugh Jackman. Whether it's his awards-worthy acting, his Broadway-caliber musical skills, his fun rivalry with Ryan Reynolds, or his effervescent real-life personality, Jackman seems like a truly likable guy. When he won the role of Logan over Doug Ray Scott on the original X-Men, few would have anticipated his 20-year reign in the mutant franchise. From virtually every X-Men film to his 3 solo outings, Jackman continued to grow into the role of Wolverine, both physically and emotionally. Since departing the role in 2017's stunning Logan, Marvel has struggled to find a worthy successor for Jackman, but it wasn't always so positive when it comes to the adamantium-reinforced Canuck. 2009 was a long way from where Wolverine first began development. As far back as 2001, future Game of Thrones co-creator David Benioff tried to create a standalone film for the character. Once Benioff was officially hired in 2004, the script took root in classic comic book arcs like Weapon X, Frank Miller and Chris Moore's iconic run in 1982, as well as the 2001 miniseries Origin, which gave us a detailed 19th century look at the true genesis of the character. There was also direct input from Hugh Jackman, who worked on developing the spin-off as a character-driven work, while Benioff aimed to make the story darker and more brutal with aim at a potential R rating. Eventually, Hitman scribe Skip Woods entered the fray, as did David Ayer, Scott Silver, and James Vanderbilt. With so many cooks in the kitchen, director Gavin Hood added his own ideas concerning Deadpool and the relationship between Wolverine and Sabretooth to the mix. Before Hood joined the project, Brett Ratner, Alejandro Aya, Len Wiseman, and even Zack Snyder were considered for the director's chair. Jackman liked the work that Hood brought to his previous film, Tsotsi, even though Hood was not a comic book fan. Essentially, all of the elements that made The Wolverine and Logan the films they are germinated in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Even though the finished product was far from the Oscar-caliber work Jackman and James Mangold brought to Logan, this origin works because it focused on Wolverine in a way he never had in the ensemble X-Men films. It also tried its best to unmangle the already deeply convoluted mythology of the 20th Century Fox Marvel Universe, a problem that only became more pronounced as more movies were released. Hugh Jackman has distanced himself from the movie, calling it X-Men 4, and we all know Ryan Reynolds deep regretted how the movie turned Wade Wilson into Weapon 11, or is it Weapon Chi? Weapon XI? Weapon XE? Weapon 11? We'll just call him Weapon 11. Fans and critics alike blasted the movie, which holds only a 37% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It also doesn't help that a work print of the film leaked a month before it hit theaters and was viewed by close to 15 million people. I'm sure that made a big dent in the $373 million global box office. But for a film budgeted at $150 million and featuring some risky creative decisions, why does everyone forget that the movie features some truly exhilarating action shots? X-Men Origins Wolverine delivers a story that gives us the 1845 origin of a young James Howlett as he witnesses the death of his father before moving through a history of wars with his half-brother Victor Creed. The casting of Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth, taking over from Tyler Mane in the 2000 film, was an inspired choice. Physically imposing compared to the shorter-statured Wolverine, Sabretooth's now concrete blood connection to Logan made him a much more formidable adversary. Schreiber could easily have become as significant as the Joker is to Batman had he continued to appear in future films. We also get the excellent casting of Danny Huston as a young William Stryker. While we would once again see Stryker recast even younger in Days of Future Past, Huston equals the gravitas of Brian Cox from X2. Huston is one of the most underrated character actors working today and adds a menace that was missing from Cox's fiery interpretation, while this story deepens his motivations against mutants in the form of his son. Origins also introduces us to Team X, an early iteration of the X-Force model comprised of many mutants familiar to comic book fans. Musician will.i.am features as John Wraith, Kevin Durand as Blob, Dominic Monaghan as Chris Bradley, aka Maverick, and Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson. Each of these characters, as well as cameos by a young Scott Summers and Tana Totsi as Emma, not Emma Frost, along with Patrick Stewart's cameo as a CGI de-aged Professor X, are all intriguing nods to the X-Men mythos, as well as a 1979 set flashback prequel that would inspire Matthew Vaughn's critically lauded X-Men First Class. The film does feature two very significant characters, both of whom add substantially to the plot. First is Kayla Silverfox, played by Lynn Collins. Collins, the beautiful anchor to Disney's box office bomb John Carter, is here again portraying a strong female character and one whose ambiguous allegiances make her more than eye candy. While Collins is absolutely gorgeous and a pleasure to see on screen, she delivers a character worthy enough to carry her own superhero film, and it's a shame we did not see more of her. The other character is, of course, Ryan Reynolds' first take on Wade Wilson. While we can all agree that the two Deadpool films that we have gotten so far match the comic book character to a T, the Origins version of Wade Wilson is the template from which Reynolds drew his eventual trademark role.
You're up next.
Thank you, sir. You look really nice today. It's the green. Brings out the seriousness in your eyes.
Oh my God, do you ever shut up, pal?
No, not when I'm awake.
Always a quick-witted and hilarious person in real life, just follow him on Twitter if you don't already, Reynolds mastered Wade's constantly running mouth in this film.
Okay. People are dead.
A role that was intended to be a cameo but ballooned into a primary villain role is often derided as one of the most ill-guided movie decisions of all time. While I agree that silencing Wade Wilson was a massive error, his transformation into Weapon 11, who was played in the final scene by an uncredited Scott Adkins, provides us with the precursor to X-23, played by Daphne Keane, and X-24 in Logan. Here, the enhanced Wade represents Stryker's goal of creating a perfect weapon that is even superior to Wolverine. Obviously this fails, and while we never get to see the storyline continued, it paved the way for Logan. It also allowed the world to see Ryan Reynolds as the perfect choice for Wade, a promise eventually fulfilled on the big screen twice, and potentially as the connecting presence that will bring the X-Men characters formally into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Origins also features the live-action debut of Gambit, played by Taylor Kitsch. In the years since, Channing Tatum's Gambit solo film has lingered in development hell, but Kitsch's performance as Remy LeBeau is a wasted opportunity to feature a fan-favorite character in a much more significant capacity. Kitsch's portrayal feels reminiscent of Harrison Ford's Han Solo in the Star Wars films, but only if Solo had dropped Luke and Obi-Wan off and left the film. His time on screen is truly entertaining, but he is gone too soon. While the later prequels would make extensive use of their retro time periods, the late 70s setting of Origins is more of a curiosity than a driving plot element. While it makes the canon more difficult to track across X-Men films and is in direct contrast to the events of X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, it does add to Wolverine's virtually immortal stature in the Marvel Universe. We get to see Jackman endure some of the most violent events in history, and even go toe-to-toe with a helicopter, a sequence that holds up really well a decade later. The leaked work print did not do any favors for the film, but the final product featuring 1,000 FX shots is very impressive. From the visualization of Gambit's powers to the 3 Mile Island battle scene, the CGI here is really good. Even the bone versions of Wolverine's claws look like convincing prosthetics rather than being computer generated. Hell, I didn't even realize they used matte paintings for the final battle sequence. The score by Harry Gregson Williams is also appropriately epic, especially the theme played during the opening montage. Jackman's aim for making this movie a character-driven film clearly fell short. Gavin Hood's disagreements with Fox executives are well documented, and even required legendary filmmaker Richard Donner to visit production to ease tensions. Eventually, Hood relented to what Fox wanted the film to be, a standard blockbuster, eliminating aspects of making Wolverine a war veteran coping with PTSD, as the studio felt it was too heavy for a comic book movie. We know now, with the array of superhero films ranging from The Dark Knight, Watchmen, to Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, that audiences are prepared and willing to endure all sorts of emotional depths in their blockbuster films. It should also be noted that the broken down, angst-ridden portrayal of Wolverine would eventually make it to screen in, you guessed it, Logan. Clearly, Logan is the benchmark that we should hold the entire Wolverine film series to, but it would not have existed without X-Men Origins. This prequel is conventional, yes. It hits the same formulaic notes that every X-Men film did as well. But where the X-Men movies had to pay service to the franchise as a whole, this trilogy starter manages to take that formula and use it as a launching pad for two very distinct sequels. X-Men Origins Wolverine may have disappointed fans and critics by not being as unique as it could have been, but without this movie, we would never have seen the Wolverine or Logan. Even taken on its own merits, this movie is a raucous action extravaganza that ranks up there with the most fun summer movies of the last 20 years. But hey, that's just my unpopular opinion. Tell us yours in the comments below. I'm Alex Mady with JOBLO.com.